Mr. Xie Yaoquan.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to start by saying that everyone should pay attention to this bill because this bill matters and should matter to each one of us. The Mental Capacity Act has come a long way since it was passed in Parliament in 2008 and came into effect in 2010. In the last 10-odd years, attitudes and mindsets on mental capacity have shifted in the right direction. More people are open to contemplating and planning for morbidity and indeed mortality. In other words, planning for disease, dying, and death. Yet, it is estimated that 1 in 10 in Singapore aged 60 and above may get dementia. And in advanced stages of the disease, a patient will lose the ability to make decisions for him or herself on his or her personal welfare, property, money, and other affairs. And as our population ages, there will be more and more of such patients. The key point is it can happen to any senior. And it is not just about seniors. It can happen to younger adults too. An unfortunate accident, for example, or a stroke, can rob a person of his or her ability to decide and act for him or herself. And so loss of mental capacity can really happen to any one of us. Luck of the draw. Not a pleasant thought, but a necessary one. And so this is why every one of us should think about and plan for the loss of our own mental capacity. And after 11 years of the Mental Capacity Act being in force, I believe it is time for the practice and implementation of the Act to move into a new phase, shift to a higher gear, and gather even more momentum. Therefore, the proposed amendments to this Act are very timely, and I stand in full support of the bill. The move to make the LPA application and registration process electronic by default is a very significant move, a major shift from the practice today. I believe it will bring much more convenience to both donors and donees, and with the shift to digital, LPAs can be registered in just 8 working days, compared to the more than 3 weeks currently, so slightly half the time needed. No more wet ink signatures, no more multiple changing of hands of hard copy application forms. The proposed move is also in line with our broader digital government strategy, allowing for much more frictionless transactions between citizen and government at different stages in life and for different life cycle needs. There may be concerns that the shift to electronic LPA making could inadvertently exclude the very seniors for whom this move is intended to bring convenience to, because our seniors might not be digitally savvy. On this, I am confident that the government has created sufficient touch points and resources in the community to make sure that seniors who need help with electronic LPA making in particular and digital transactions with the government in general will get the help that they need. Now, in MSF's public consultation exercise, I saw a suggestion to remove the need for in-person attendance before the certificate issuer in order to make the process even more convenient. In other words, make the process completely electronic, just between man and the system. The bill has, however, retained the in-person attendance before a CI, the certificate issuer, as a critical safeguard, and I support this as it would preserve confidence in the revamped process. But more importantly, I think the feedback brings into focus a larger point that convenience needs to be seen against the other dimension of importance, and I'll explain this. Now, I know of seniors who have 10, 15, 20 appointments with doctors each year. Almost all of these are attendances in person, although teleconsults are becoming more common, and yet seniors do not find these in-person attendances with doctors excessively inconvenient, because ultimately these are about their health, and health is of course important. And so it should be with LPAs. The general point is this: while the bill seeks to make the LPA making process as convenient as possible, ultimately our attitudes towards an LPA, the importance that we attach to an LPA, must really move to a higher plane. An LPA should be as important as good health, because having an LPA is part of planning well and living well. And having an LPA is part of overall good health and well-being. And so just like good health, we need LPA adoption in Singapore to be much more widespread. Going forward, MSF expects a transaction volume of around 30,000 LPAs to be made a year based on pre-COVID trends. I think this is far too low a level of adoption. Thus, I'd like to ask, how is MSF planning to encourage much wider adoption of LPAs? How can we get many more to be aware of LPA, to be aware of mental capacity issues in the first instance? And how can we get many more to then recognize its due importance and actually take action to make an LPA? I have 4 suggestions. First, I'd like to suggest that MSF partners with healthcare providers to open up a whole new frontier of LPA touchpoints in the community. I believe that every patient passing through the doors of our polyclinics should be screened for LPA coverage. And for those that are not covered, the correct care planning conversations should take place in the polyclinic there and then. I believe the same screening should happen in our specialist outpatient clinics and even the wards in public hospitals. The screening should take place in our daycare and senior activity centers across the island. I think we ought to incorporate LPAs as part of standard health and care protocol for our seniors going forward. And I hope that healthcare settings in Singapore will get the right resources, for example, special LPA ambassadors and or training for existing staff to carry out the right conversations. Second, I suggest that we leverage the Silver Generation Office to promote LPAs door to door. Engage and spread the message door to door, just like how we did for COVID vaccination. The need for inoculation against poor planning or no planning ought to be as important as the need for inoculation against disease. Third, to better reach out to potential donees, youths, young adults, even middle-aged citizens, and encourage them to broach these conversations with their parents, grandparents, loved ones. We should utilize various channels, online and offline, again, to reach out to these potential donees and get the message across. Fourth and finally, IMDA has been training thousands of seniors in a range of digital skills like SingPass, WhatsApp, and e-payment through the Seniors Go Digital program. It is a very successful program, and I hope that MSF can work with IMDA to incorporate LPAs and make it a standard offering in the Seniors Go Digital program going forward as well. To conclude, in fact, we need seniors to adopt not just LPA, but also advanced care planning, make a will, and make a CPF nomination as part of a comprehensive plan to live well and eventually leave well for the benefit of themselves and their loved ones. Every senior, an LPA, an ACP, a will, a CPF nomination, that should be our overarching goal to ensure that all bases are covered for our seniors. And this bill is the first of many steps that we would need to take in that direction. Mr. Speaker, sir, in Mandarin. 社会及家庭发展部修改心智能力法案，让制定持久授权书（英文简称 LPA） 的过程转移线上、数码化。因此，注册持久授权书的时间将从3个星期缩短至平均8个工作日，将近一半。持久授权书本身也将成为一份电子文件。同时，新流程并不会有失于对于授权人的保障。此方针不仅与政府的公共服务数码转型大愿景接轨，更将给有意授权或被授权的公众人士带来更多的便利。有些人，尤其是年长者，会担忧不懂电脑、不懂线上平台怎么办？对此，我有信心，政府已在社区各处提供了足够的服务站与服务资源，帮助需要帮助的公众人士。撇开这一次修改心智能力法案的细节，我认为其法案更根本的含义，乃在于人民对持久授权书 LPA 本身的广泛意识，以及人民对 LPA 的重要性的广泛认知。在这一方面，我们要做的还有很多，因为目前已经制定持久授权书的国人实在是太少了。有调查显示，甚至是医护人员本身，有一大部分的其实并没有为死后或临终相关的事宜做好准备，这当然包括制定持久授权书。所谓的持久授权书 LPA， 就是让我们能指定自己信任的被授权人 donee， 在自己丧失心智能力后，代替我们决定并执行个人的福利、产业和财务事宜。也就是说，制定持久授权书就是在未雨绸缪，万一我们失智了，被授权人就成为我们的后盾。万一我们失智了，这句话也许不中听，但必须说在前头。其实失智的几率甚至不是1/1000，因为60岁以上患失智症的几率更靠近1/10。所以大家都应该制定持久授权书。对此，我希望社会及家庭发展部能与医疗机构合作，开拓更多的 LPA 联系点。经过任何综合诊疗所或公共医院或日间中心的年长者，都应该得到 LPA 覆盖的检测。如果察觉到还没有制定 LPA， 临场立刻进行适当的对话和说明。再来，我们也应该利用乐龄关爱大使与 SGO Silver Generation Office 挨家挨户做宣导，就像我们提倡接种疫苗一样，因为周全的人生计划也一样需要接种。周全的人生计划也一样需要接种。我们也应该利用各种渠道，包括线上和线下，鼓励更多的青年及中年人士与父母、祖父母、亲人进行对于持久授权书的讨论。放眼未来，我个人的希望是每一位年长者不只有一份 LPA， 还要有一份预先护理计划 Advanced Care Planning ACP， 还要有一份遗嘱，还要有一份公积金的提名。希望我们能一步步的朝这个目标迈进。Mr. Speaker, sir, I stand in support of this bill.